Hello everybody and welcome to our webinar on TVT integration, connect, automate and accelerate. My name is Mike Baird. I'm the Director of Product Management here at Schlafender Hase, and my co-presenter today is Peter Muller.
Hello everyone, how are you doing? Welcome to the webinar. My name is Peter Muller. I'm the Director for the Americas here at Schlafender Hase.
Thanks, Peter. Okay. So, topics we will cover today. So why are we even talking about integration? Why does it matter to you as a TVT user? What it means in the context of the review and approval of packaging and labeling documents and artworks. Then we'll talk a little bit about how TVT itself can enhance the efficiency through making this integration and the connectivity itself. Peter's got some use cases that he's going to present to you all. And then finally, we've got a little self-assessment checklist to see if you will actually benefit from the integration itself. So without further ado, let's jump straight in.
Excellent, thanks, Mike. So why does integration matter? So we have a bunch of challenges and some opportunities that we can kind of review. You know, the challenge, and this is not just for artworks and labeling and packaging, in companies in general, systems are disconnected. You know, everybody's looking to move towards that centralization of data and have kind of the single source of truth where they can manage everything. We also have a lot more SKUs and markets internationally. You know, folks are establishing or expanding internationally and you know, entering new countries and markets. We also have the demands of globally collaborating. We have colleagues that are based in other countries dealing with different markets, so we want to make sure to address that as well. As always, regulations never decrease. There's always an increase in regulations and things we have to comply to. And a bit of a challenge, but also an enabler, is the shift from, you know, desktop applications to cloud-based systems. So the opportunities for us as kind of TVT users is, you know, to be able to work smarter across teams, collaborate, and all be looking at the same data at the same time. And as we move forward and we get further integration, you know, that supports kind of our future workflows that we'll be establishing in the future.
Good, thanks, Peter. So yes, so specifically now talking about integration in the context of the artwork review process. So quick definition for everybody, just to make sure we're all on the same page here. So we're talking about making our systems, whatever those systems are, work together to make your life easier. So, you know, for example, here's a few examples here of meeting corporate goals. It cannot be done manually. Too many things happening, too many, in some cases, too many disparate systems as well. So we need to make things a little bit more automated. As you can see from that stat there, I think we all know that more than 50% of the US FDA food recalls are labeling related. And as you can see, allergens make up a huge bulk of these. These could be it could be typos, it could be missing content, it could be incorrect content, of course, it could be the allergens. There are so many different things that could go wrong in this process without meaning to scaremonger, but trying to keep on top of all these things in a manual process with a you know, manual environment is going to be too hard to handle. As I just mentioned, we have too many systems, probably all of us that we're working in, and many, if not all of them, are disconnected. Do you always know where your files actually are? If you do know where your files are, do you know if they're the latest versions of those files, the most correct and up to date? And then, you know, who needs to review and approve which parts of the content? Because not everything might go through the same workflow every single time.
Yeah, and so, you know, we're already, if you're a TVT user, which I assume you are connecting to this webinar, that, you know, we already know TVT reduces the risk of errors. And you know, the previous stat that Mike said, talked about food labeling, it was that high in pharma as well. 10 to 15 years ago, but since the implementation of TVT and systems like that, you know, we've seen the number of labeling related recalls drop significantly, where it's no longer a major thing, and that's because of tools like TVT and TVT to a great extent. You know, we reduce the content comparison workload, so the number of comparisons and the correction cycles you have to go through, and then also for supporting brand and regulatory compliance. Going forward, by integrating TVT into other kind of various systems, you know, we can now achieve increases in automation across different systems. So by connecting those systems, now we can extend the workflow across those systems. As I mentioned, you know, accelerated time to approval, and that's primarily due to less, you know, the reduction in the number of correction cycles, the back and forth changing things, right? Obviously, TVT is known for security and peace of mind. You know, the slogan we like to say is it allows our users to sleep at night, so I don't have to worry if I caught everything. And since we are seeing more and more regulatory requirements from other industries such as food, which we spoke to already, you know, some of the learnings that we have from the life sciences in terms of, you know, maintaining an audit trail, who did what. Increasingly, we're also seeing checklists being implemented. So what are the items I need to check? So one of my items in the checklist could be, you know, I'm using TVT to do a comparison, but I also want to manually check inside my artwork as part of my checklist. Is the color right? You know, am I using the latest logo for the company? I mean, companies go through rebrandings all the time and need to check these things. So we see a lot of our clients using a checklist either manually or kind of virtually, where TVT is one of the checklist items, but there's also other checklist items that you manually review inside of TVT. Mike, I believe you're on mute.
Thank you, Peter. One of the, just to add to that, I was saying one of the big benefits that we see on that security and peace of mind point is that everything is contained within the connected systems. So if you're in your, for example, artwork management system, and you select your two files, you click the send to TVT button, it automatically opens those files within TVT. You don't have to download anything. You're not, again, worrying about have you got the correct version or the latest version or even totally the wrong content whatsoever. It's already just shipped into TVT. You run all of the checks in the same way that you would normally. Everything is still the same within TVT. And then at the end of the process, when you finish a comparison, you've done all the work that you needed to do there, then you simply close it down, and that sends everything straight back into, in this instance, the artwork management system. So there's no user intervention in terms of moving the files around, uploading and downloading or anything like that. So it is saving you time, it's saving you lots of clicks, which is always a good thing. You're not having stuff on your desktop or in your downloads folder that you're not really sure whether it should be there or shouldn't be there, and then you have to go and upload it somewhere else anyway. So I think there's a much kind of broader scope to that whole automation piece.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so speaking of artwork management systems, what else can you connect to? So here's some examples. So the second one down, obviously the AMS. So I think we all know SQL Web Center, Loftware SmartFlow, Calic Veracity. At the top, the regulatory information management system, so the RIM system like Viva and RIMSys, for example. And then you have the kind of broader content management, document management solutions, so Documentum and SharePoint, and then even into quality management systems or EQMS, so Simpler or Qualio, for example. And then, again, these are just names that you may be familiar with, so to kind of position it for you when you're thinking about this, and the kind of systems you might be using. It can also integrate, we can also integrate TVT with pretty much any other kind of solution that's out there that you may use as part of your business workflow on a daily basis.
Yeah, and one of the ones that we're seeing more and more requests from is our medical device customers. So their authoring systems, right? Where, you know, they may want to do a comparison straight from their authoring system if it's holding different things. So lots of different systems.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So here we can kind of present some use cases at a high level. You know, just to the one that Mike was mentioning before, where you've got ESCO Web Center, TVT are integrated. You've got your, and that's the first one I'm speaking to, by the way, which is our customer Vertex Pharma. They recently deployed the ESCO TVT connectors, connected up the two systems. And basically what they're doing is inside of an ESCO Web Center project, they have files that they want to, are contained in that project. And they basically select the two or multiple files they'd like to compare together. And they select the little menu option inside of their ESCO project saying send to TVT. And so TVT will spawn with the files that they've selected. They're running their comparison just like they normally would inside of TVT. And when they say, okay, end project, instead of actually clicking on a button and saying generate, your TVT audit trail or your TVT original copy, annotated copy versions like you would normally in TVT, you basically just close the project. And that is now automatically generated by TVT and pushed back into the ESCO Web Center project. The nice thing after that is that you can create workflow rules that when a new, TVT copy report is placed into a project, ESCO Web Center can be monitoring that folder and it can say, there's a new change report that needs to go to my ARC workers. So it can queue it up in the artwork management system queue to the artwork team and say, hey, here's a TVT review report. Could you please make these corrections? And it'll automatically schedule that task. When the art worker says, okay, I accept that task, I'm ready to go and make the changes, brings up the TVT report, they can open their design application, basically go through and do the changes, upload the next version into Web Center. And then again, an automated ESCO workflow can say, new version that needs to be compared in TVT, send it to the regulatory affairs folks that, need to now redo the comparison, see that all the changes are made, and they go ahead. And so even the steps of automating that can really accelerate your workflows because you get notified and I can do it right away or I can do it when I have time. So very, very interesting. Mike, I think you had another example for a German pharmaceutical company that you wanted to mention. And you're on mute again.
Thank you. The beauty of live webinars. Yes, this big pharma company had for a long time been doing the whole process manually and have been a long-standing customer of TVT. So that allows a level of automation in the middle of their workflow, but still it's not integrated with anything else. So still, in this case, it was a document management solution, but still lots of uploading and downloading and sending back and forth. So in exactly the same way as you just described, Peter, this with the artwork management, the Web Center connection, the same thing applies with the document management system connection. So and I think it's important to say here that we've done this lots of times now with lots of different technology partners out there. So it's a very smooth process to do it once everybody's on board for doing that. We provide the information and the code snippets that the partners would need. They can integrate that into their user interface, wherever you need it putting in, do some tweaking with that, and then basically testing and then go live. It's very straightforward to do that. But exactly the same process was followed here. So you've got two documents again, or more that they want to do the comparison against. Same way, the files just flowed in to TVT, the work is done, and then they're sent straight back out, back into the DMS. Now, also in this case, you can then, and this is outside the scope of TVT's connection, but you can then have further connections between the DMS and the QMS, for example, or the RIM, or whatever other systems that you've got in there using open APIs. So it might sound a bit daunting if you're not familiar with it at first, but we have a lot of expertise in this. We can help. We can consult on this on your behalf.
Excellent. Equally, we have, some medical device customers that are kind of have specific or point use cases for not only integrating, but now we're getting more into the automation topics, right? Because we've talked a lot about integration so far in the webinar, but part of it is automating. So some folks may be familiar with TVT Connect, which is kind of the overarching brand name for our API. Then we have TVT Automate, which is kind of a rebranding of an API that not too many of our customers knew about. And it was a way, or it is a way, to call TVT automatically and get TVT to process files without any human intervention whatsoever. Okay, so some of these other use cases that we're going to go through are leveraging heavily what we call TVT Automate, which is our automation connection or API to actually call and automate TVT without human input or input rather. So the first example we have in med device is a med device kit for surgery, right? Where I have a master barcode and I have a bunch of sub barcodes for each of the serialized pieces that's in that's in the kit, and they want to make sure that each of those barcodes is applied to each of the individual serialized boxes or cartons that contain the pieces of the kit. And really they have a master list of, here's the master barcode for this kit, here's the sub barcodes, and they want to check the barcodes just exclusively out of the different artworks they have for each of those individual cartons that go into the piece, and they want to make sure that each barcode corresponds to the master, which is then for serialization purposes. So TVT is able to automatically be fed those files. So here's the master barcode list. Here's the list of artworks with the next barcodes, and get TVT to automatically compare the barcodes, grade them, and generate a report quickly. So we're sending it just that one specific task. We're not proofreading text. We're not proofreading, comparing images. We're just checking the barcodes against the master list. And by structuring and standardizing the naming conventions of the files, TVT can be programmed to say, okay, I know this is the file I have to be looking at as my original. These are the files I need to look for with my copy. I know I should have 5 of them. I can automatically find those in a network file structure in this case, in SharePoint in this specific case, where I find those files, I have the naming convention, I can actually, TVT automatically does that comparison and exports the report into another folder. And so a user will just have to open the reports, verify that everything has gone correctly, and they don't need to launch TVT. If there is some kind of anomaly, a barcode doesn't match, a grade doesn't work, something like that, they can go back into a history folder and open the TVT project, which corresponds with that comparison job number, and open it and actually review it manually if they need to. But they don't need to review for that specific item. Okay? We have a similar use case where another medical device manufacturing company was moving their labeling system from one system to another system. And as part of that migration, they wanted to verify that the labels had migrated across to the new system without any differences. So it was basically using TVT artwork and basically a huge list of files that were, artwork 1 compared to artwork 2, artwork 3 compared to artwork 4. So there was a logical naming convention behind the files, and TVT was just simply grabbing the files, comparing them, and then generating a report out. If there were deviations, it went into folder A. If there were no deviations, it went into folder B. Right? So ideally, you'd like to see all of your files go into folder B, and then the migration from one document manager or one labeling management system to the other with my artworks hasn't changed anything. Another interesting one, food and beverage company. This one, they make sports drinks and nutritional type drinks, and the ingredients list are fairly complex. And they're using actually scientists, so PhDs, that are doing the review of the ingredients. So very, very expensive people to have sitting there doing proofreading. So again, very similarly, we have the ingredients list, we have the artwork, we compare everything automatically because we have a file naming convention where we can do that. If there are any deviations, it goes into folder A, no deviations, folder B. And so instead of the PhD having to spend time there, picking the two files, loading them, hitting compare, doing this, generating a report, well, we've automated the comparison and the generation of the report. So they just have to approve the reports that contain deviations. If 90% of your jobs don't contain deviations, well, TVT's already proofed the ingredients list versus the packaging. We don't need to look at those, right? We only need to deal with the exceptions. So that's a good one. And then here, I guess, two other kind of use cases, which are a little bit outside the box, but just to get your mind thinking of potential uses for automation here. We have a client that generates mutual fund prospectuses. So they generate those mutual fund prospectuses. You know, they have a bunch of funds and they have the returns on the fund, right? They produce those reports internationally. So in the US, I will see 99.0%, whereas in Europe, I want to see 99.0%, right? So all of the numbers in the prospectus, and these are very large prospectuses with hundreds and hundreds of funds and hundreds of returns, you know, 1 year return, 5-month return, a year return, you know, return since inception of the fund. All the numbers are supposed to be the same, but there's a deviation always caught between the comma and the period. So our programmers were able to help use TVT in TVT Automate to basically program those jobs to do that. But then also we wrote a small customization for this client that when there's a comma to a period change in a number, we don't need to report that as a deviation. And really that's what their core interest was. They'll use TVT manually to, you know, perhaps, you know, proofread the cover page of the mutual fund prospectus, but all the tables with all of the numbers, they don't want to go through and manually proofread that. So we use TVT to automate and accelerate that, with that one little exception that, yes, we know there's a difference comma to period. We don't want to see that reported as a deviation. And then similarly, we had a very large client that did a document management system upgrade, migration, and had something like 300,000 documents to move from one to the other. And for some reason in the migration, there was actually corruption of specific Unicode characters. So, I mean, you've probably seen it yourself when you generate a PDF and instead of getting an @ sign, you get a weird wingding or something like that happen. So there was very, very specific corruption that was created in this migration. So TVT was able to identify all of the specific corruptions that were done, right? Then the client looked at all those corruptions and said, hey, can you fix these? So yes, we can. So again, our developers can help with this. Basically, they wrote scripts knowing which corruptions had happened and how to correct those corruptions. They wrote scripts to go into each of those 300,000 documents and correct, you know, for a series of errors that TVT had identified. We're actually able to Unicode correct those files without having any manual intervention. So TVT was able to identify all the deviations that were corrected. The customer said, this character should actually be this character. We programmed a couple scripts to be able to do that and go through the documents and make the changes. So just thinking outside the box a bit about different things that you could do with TVT integrated and automated. And that was a long slide to present.
Thank you. Yeah, well done. Okay, and conscious of the time now, I think we're right at the very end. So this is a good position to be in. So is integration right for you, of course? So yes, this is a little checklist we talked about right at the beginning. So you're a TVT user is always a good place to start. If you're using any other system that's currently unconnected to store, move, review, approve your documents, whatever kind of documents they may be, as long as you're running them through TVT, then that's also a good position to be in. Obviously, you want to make your life easy. You don't want complexity in terms of too many versions. You don't know where everything is, what's going on, and or you and your team are doing lots of things manually, whether that's proofreading or moving the files or the reviews of any kind. Maybe the business is going through some kind of digital transformation. So you're aiming, as it says, for more collaboration, more interactivity between your colleagues and your departments. And really, yeah, you just want to kind of move into a more modern way of working that's going to be much more efficient and effective for you and for the whole business too. If you can check those, then yes, of course, you're ready for integration with TVT. Okay, and that's this is just reiterating what we said before, that we can, if you can describe it, we can integrate with it. We have an open API that allows us to integrate with pretty much any kind of solution, whether it's on-prem, whether it's in the cloud. It's okay, we can make it work. Okay, and there we go, right on time.
Excellent. So thanks, Mike. Thanks to the audience for joining us today. And if you didn't catch that little star on the previous slide, we have a little, self-assessment checklist that you can run through. I think we're going to be emailing that out to everyone that's attended or registered for the webinar. You can kind of run through that checklist and see if you're a potential candidate to do some automation or integration. And if you are, as always, feel free to reach out to us.
Very good. So yeah, once again, thanks everybody. Thanks, Peter. And yeah, we hope you found this useful.
Excellent.
Thanks a lot.
Have a good day.